I've featured the brand Alto 8 here on my channel before. However, the watch that we're looking at today is something completely different from what they have done in the past. They've done some wild watches, but this is actually a very original design with some very interesting details. So let's flip the camera and take a look at a very cool watch that is also affordable from Alto 8. I love featuring interesting watches here on my channel, and this is definitely an interesting watch. Doesn't mean that it's a very complicated watch, it just means that they came up with an idea and they've executed it pretty well, I would say. What this is, it's called the chronogate. The indices here, it's basically a sandwich dial. Those indices change every 12 hours, from a 24-hour dial to a 12-hour dial. That's it. So it's every 12 hours, not every 24. So it's not based on the date wheel. There's actually a mechanism, a module that they came up with that changes that over. And you could see right below that 12 o'clock index or 24-hour index, whatever you want to call it, there is a window. There is the movement that you could see. So it's technically skeletonized. You don't have a dial there, and the movement is skeletonized. However, the plate is actually finished very nicely, and there is a key that is sitting above the movement. And that key basically toggles between two prongs that's part of the movement that changes that date wheel. So it's technically not a date wheel, but I'm calling it a date wheel, I guess, but it's really not a date wheel. And because of the way that they've set up this dial, it has a lot of depth. So the way that the hour markers are below the dial, and then you have an hour track, I guess, for lack of a better term, there is a large portion of the dial, the outer ring of the dial is sloping towards the center of the dial, which has a guilloche pattern. I believe that is a pressed guilloche pattern. And then you have that skeletonized portion. So there's like 3 or 4 layers plus that key to the dial. So there's a lot of depth here. And you also get a sapphire crystal, which is domed. You get these very large hands. There are large circles at the end of each one of the hands. And when it's at 12 o'clock, it makes an 8. And the brand's name is Alto 8. And that's kind of the reason why they did that. And you will notice on the dial, there is no logo. So their logo isn't on the dial. That's the only time you will see a logo, and it's really not a logo. You have a running seconds hand that has a needle seconds hand, and there is no lume here because this is a dress watch, I would say. There are a few different versions of it. They make a purple one, which is probably one of my favorite out of the bunch. There's this blue one, there's a silver, and I believe they make a gold dial, I want to say, and a green dial. So the green dial is one that has not been released yet. If I have photos of that, I will throw them up on the screen. But the green dial is a new version. What they all have in common is that they have a skeletonized movement, and they all do the exact same thing. They all have the same functionality. When you flip over the watch, there is a couple of different little options to this watch that, I don't know, I mean, it all depends on your taste and what you want to see. You could get a display case back or no display case back. If you want no display case back, this watch is slightly cheaper at $499. If you want the display case back, it's slightly more expensive. So it's around $480, somewhere in that range. This version is $480, I believe, with the display case back. However, there's an option to get a display case back on their website. So this might be a little bit more expensive than the other versions that are currently available. So definitely go to their website. The pricing is a little bit weird because you do have a couple of different options, and it can go up to $1,300 if you want to put a custom rotor on here. But they're also giving you 9% off at checkout, so it's almost 10% off if you do the pre-order, because these are currently in pre-order and they will be delivered in January. I've featured a few of Alto 8 watches here on my channel, and one thing that they have in common, most of them, not all of them, is this case. They make a really nice case. This one is in stainless steel and in titanium. And it's definitely a titanium mid case, and then the bezel, I believe, is in stainless steel. It looks like the case back is also in titanium. This one gets a darkened movement, so this is a little bit different from what you'll see on their website. There is an option for a darkened movement. Well, actually, it's just a photo of the darkened movement. There is a silver movement and then this black movement. That's what they're calling it. However, when you look at the drop down, there's no option for this black movement. So I'm not entirely sure how you get this exact movement. If you like this darkened movement, I suggest sending them an email. Probably get a little bit of information from them on which movement and how to order it through their website. But like I said, you can get a custom rotor. That's a lot more expensive. I would definitely go for the display case back. The movement in this watch is a Chinese movement. Obviously, it is skeletonized. It has 40 hours of power reserve and is operating at 28,800 vibrations. So I think that this is probably an ETA clone of some sort. The structure here is somewhat different, and I'll do plenty of close-ups of the movement. It's really nicely finished. It looks like a slightly higher quality than you would normally see from maybe a seagull movement or something like that. So it leads me to believe that this might be a peacock movement, which usually are nicer movements. They're usually nicer finishing. There's usually nicer components in general. But again, I'm not 100% sure. And I know that the module that's on top is in-house to Alto 8, or at least they have developed that in-house. On wrist, I have a Nevada Grenchen. This is a new, I think this is the Antarctic, but it's a new version of the Antarctic that they just came out with. It was a reissue. They did a reissue of the original with some original movements and dials. This is a reimagining of that original watch, slightly larger at around 40 millimeters. Just a really good looking watch with a black and white dial. It really is very legible and really good looking. And there it is on my 7.5 inch wrist. This is a 37.6 millimeter watch according to my caliper, so essentially a 38 millimeter watch with a 46 millimeter lug to lug and a 14 millimeter thickness. Now that sounds thick, but it really isn't. It's that sapphire crystal, which is extremely domed. It is a very high dome on that sapphire crystal. So really, this wears like a 12 millimeter thick watch, not a 14 millimeter thick watch. And you can see it looks really good on my 7.5 inch wrist. You have that pattern on the dial, so you have that guilloche pattern. You have those indices that are sort of sloped, but also underneath the dial, so it appears that they're sloped, but they're not. It's really flat underneath the dial. It looks really cool. I think they did a great job designing this watch, and there are a lot of little details that make it kind of special, and I really love that they did not put any branding on here at all. There is no lume because this is not a sports watch. It only gets 50 meters of water resistance, but with that being said, 50 meters, not that bad for a dress watch. All in all, there is no lume, so we won't do a lume shot. The strap is a Cav leather strap. You have a really nice buckle on here, very solid. I think this is a great looking watch for a very good price because it's so unique and it looks a lot more expensive than it actually is. Something that I say very often when it comes to watches like this, they are offering a lot for your money. So you can get into one of these watches for around $500. You can go up to $1,300 if you want a lot of customization, but if you want it as you see it, you can get one of these with a different color dial for slightly cheaper, for around $580, somewhere in that range, and then slightly more expensive if you want this blue dial. I'm not sure what the green dial pricing is when that comes out, but I believe that will be probably in line with this watch. Really cool, really unique watch. Tell me what you guys think down in the comment section below. I want to hear from you guys. Please also don't forget to like, subscribe, hit that bell icon. It is super helpful for the channel. and I very much appreciate it. I'll put a link to this watch down in the description below. I'll also add a link to that green version, so definitely check out those watches if you are interested. That's really it, guys. Thank you for logging on. Thank you for watching this video. I will catch you guys in the next video.